Excluded from Christmas for being a plumber, I cut off my sister's law school money. Now she's begging, and I'm better off without her. Okay, so I've been sitting on this story for a long time, trying to figure out where to even begin describing this disaster. I suppose I should introduce myself first. I'm 32, unmarried, and own my own plumbing business. Yeah, I know it's not the most glamorous job according to certain people, including my family, but to be honest, I make a lot of money and enjoy my job. There's something rewarding about fixing difficulties and assisting others, even if it occasionally requires dealing with their literalism. Amanda, my 26-year-old sister, is currently attending law school, which I have been paying for. Yeah, you read that correctly. I've been paying her full tuition since she started. Her lover was a hotshot doctor at the local hospital, a real piece of work, but we will get to him later. So this is where things went awry. About a week before Christmas, I received a call from my mother. Now, you have to realize something about my mother. She never calls just to speak or check on me. It's always because she wants something or there's a family issue that needs resolving, usually involving money, to be honest. However, this call was different. She began with a strange, hesitant tone, as if she was about to tell me that my dog had died. Then she laid the bombshell on me. I wasn't invited to Christmas this year. Just like that. There was no notice, no discussion, or anything. At first, I assumed I misheard her, as if she had said they were altering the date or something, but nah. She went on to say it might be best if I sit this one out because they wanted to keep things comfortable for everyone. I was sitting there thinking, what the actual, since this was so unexpected. We'd always celebrated Christmas together, even while I was working long hours to get my business off the ground. Sure, my family has always been odd about my job. They enjoy the money I make, but God forbid they tell anyone what their son and brother does for a living. So I pressed her on it, asking what the real reason was. She began hedging and hawing, talking in circles about professional looks and everyone's comfort. But she refused to give me a clear answer. It wasn't until later that day that I learned the true cause from my cousin Sarah. She'd overheard Amanda discussing it with our mother earlier that week. Apparently, my lovely sister had informed our parents that having me for Christmas would be awkward because I did not fit in with her and her boyfriend's professional standing. Allow that to soak in for a minute. My own sister, who I've been helping through her law school, was ashamed to have me for Christmas because I'm only a plumber. She was concerned about how her fancy doctor partner would react to having to sit at the same table as someone who worked with their hands for a career. The more I thought about it, the more things fell into place. Like how Amanda never invited me to any of her law school events despite the fact that I was paying for her to attend, or how she always changed the subject when her friends asked what her brother did for a living, or how she never introduced me to her boyfriend despite the fact that they'd been dating for nearly a year. Do you know what the worst part was? My parents agreed with her. They truly believed it was okay to exclude their own son from Christmas because his employment would make their beloved daughter's boyfriend uncomfortable. The same son who has been providing for the family since he was 18. The same son who built his own successful firm from the beginning. The same son who has been paying for their golden child's law school education without complaint. My mother tried to sugarcoat it with phrases like, well, honey, you know how these professional circles are, and maybe next year when you've developed your career more. What does that even mean? I own my own business, I have staff, I earn 6 figures performing honest work. But apparently it isn't evolved enough because I don't wear a suit and tie to work. I spent the entire day stewing over this information, growing increasingly irritated. Not the heated, angry type of pissed off, but rather a cool, calm knowledge that my family, particularly my sister, had been exploiting me while being ashamed of me the entire time. That's when I decided it was enough. If I was too embarrassed to be brought to Christmas dinner, my money would be too embarrassing to spend for law school. What kind of message would it send to my sister's fancy boyfriend if he discovered her law degree was paid for by a gas-passing plumber? But hold on, this is only the beginning. The real show began when I made the decision to take action. And let me tell you, karma is a bitch, especially when it comes with the accompanying student loan burden. So after learning that I was barred from celebrating Christmas because my blue-collar profession would insult my sister's boyfriend's delicate sensibilities, I was in a strange state of mind. You know that feeling when you're so enraged that you suddenly become strangely calm? That is where I was at. I spent the entire night reading over previous text messages and discussions with Amanda, and holy guys, the signs were everywhere. I was simply too blind, or perhaps foolish, to see them. For example, last spring she had a graduation party to celebrate finishing her first year of law school. I had truly paid for the entire year, but I didn't receive an invitation. When I approached her about it, she lied about it being a minor issue in her study group. Later I learned from Facebook that it was a large party at a posh downtown restaurant. Then there was the time when she required a new laptop for class. Despite the fact that I'm very knowledgeable about computers, she asked me to simply transfer the money to her account rather than accompany her to choose it. Nowadays, it's almost a requirement. Even in plumbing, we use tablets and specialized software to provide job bids and schedule appointments. She said she was too busy to go shopping together. But now I'm quite sure she didn't want to be seen with her plumber brother in the Apple store. Looking back, it's sort of funny in a sad way. For example, whenever she needed money, which was often, she would text her humiliating blue-collar brother. But when it came to acknowledging my presence in her fancy new life, the radio was silent. I decided to dig the benefits of having a cousin who is still on the family group chat. LOL. Amanda had been preparing for the Christmas exclusion for weeks. She told our parents that her boyfriend, Craig, yes, his name is Craig, was from a very prestigious family, and she was concerned about making a good impression. Apparently, having a plumber sibling may harm her professional prospects or some elitist ass like that. Want to know the true kicker? My cousin Sarah, bless her messy, drama-loving heart, forwarded me screenshots of Amanda's remarks from the family chat. She had actually written, and I'm quoting this one directly, "I just don't want Craig to think our family isn't, educated. It could affect how his family sees me, and they have so many connections in the legal world." Educated. Educated. I wanted to respond and inform her that the reason she's getting an education is because her uneducated plumber brother pays $43,000 per year in school. But I held back. I was beginning to formulate a strategy, and sometimes you have to play the long game. As I thought about it, I realized it wasn't only about Christmas. This was about years of my family, particularly Amanda, treating me as a filthy little secret. They were pleased to accept my dirty plumber money, but God forbid they acknowledge how I earned it. Here's a fascinating truth about plumbing that most people don't know. We have to study extensively. For example, years of apprenticeship, license examinations, and ongoing education to stay current with new legislation and technologies. I probably spent more time researching water systems and construction codes than Amanda did studying tort law. But because I work with my hands, they treat me like an idiot who couldn't make it in the real professional world. The reality is I selected plumbing because I'm skilled at it and saw an opportunity. I began working as an apprentice right out of high school, learned everything I could, obtained my licenses, and eventually launched my own firm. I currently have 3 vehicles on the road, 2 full-time staff, and more work than I can handle. But to my family, I'm still the embarrassing brother who fixes toilets. I kept thinking about all the times I went late at work or did additional work to make sure I could pay Amanda's tuition. All those times I postponed purchasing new items for myself or contributing more to my retirement account because family came first. Meanwhile, she was actively attempting to conceal my existence from her new lover and his family. That's when my cousin threw another bomb at me. Craig's family did not appear to be overly concerned with such matters. His uncle, a successful contractor, built their family house. Amanda had simply assumed they would look down on me since that is how she sees me. I sat with all of this information for a few days, monitoring the family group chat via Sarah. They'd moved me from it weeks ago, ostensibly to minimize any discomfort surrounding Christmas arrangements. Amanda was going on and on about how pleased she was to host Craig for Christmas dinner, how his family had ties at all of the city's large law firms, and how this could be her opportunity to earn a summer position through his contacts. No one stood up for me the entire time. Not my parents, nor any of my other relatives. Nobody remarked, "Hey, maybe we shouldn't exclude the guy who's been supporting Amanda through school." Everyone was just pleased about Amanda getting a prestigious internship through her boyfriend's family. That's when I realized exactly what I needed to do. If they wanted to pretend they didn't have a plumber in the family, I'd help them make that lie a reality, beginning with Amanda's tuition payments. So after stewing over all this nonsense for a few days, I decided it was time to make my move. But here's the thing. I didn't want to write a furious text or anything. I wanted to do it in such a manner that they couldn't distort my words or make me look like the evil person, which is, incidentally, my family's favorite hobby. I waited until I knew Amanda's next tuition payment was coming due. It was due in about 2 weeks, and she was always really worried around this time. Normally, she'd start dropping subtle hints about remembering the payment deadline like, "Oh, the school's been sending reminder emails or something. What about this time?" The radio was silent. She must have assumed the payment would simply come as it always did, even after they had barred me from attending Christmas. Quick side note. I had been paying my tuition payments straight to the institution using their online portal. Amanda had set it up herself when she first started, and she provided me all of the login information, which was really convenient since she considered me her personal ATM. Right. Anyway, I got into the portal and noticed my upcoming payment. $21,500 for the spring semester. That's when I realized how much money I'd been putting into her studies while she was actively attempting to conceal my existence from her boyfriend. Do you know how many toilets you need to fix to generate that much money? Answer: a lot more than most people realize. So I phoned Amanda. I didn't text her. I called because I wanted to hear her voice when I dropped the bomb. She picked up on the third ring, sounded angry as if I was interrupting something essential. "Hey," she remarked in that tone that shouts make it quick. "I'm kind of in the middle of something." "Oh, sorry," I replied, attempting to sound nonchalant. "Just wanted to talk about your tuition payment. It's due soon, right?" Her voice changed instantly. Suddenly, she became all lovely and interested. "Oh yeah, thanks for remembering. It's due on the 15th. You're still okay to cover it, right?" "Actually," I replied, "I've been thinking about what you told Mom and Dad about Christmas, about how having a plumber brother might embarrass you in front of Craig and his family." There was complete stillness on her end. You could almost hear her brain short-circuiting as she attempted to figure out how to spin this. "That's not who told you that," she eventually exclaimed. "Does it matter? Is it true or not?" I inquired. Not more silence. Then she sought to enter damage control mode. "Listen, you don't understand Craig's family. They're really particular about these things. His father's a judge, his mother's on all these charity boards. I just thought it would be better if you pretended your brother doesn't exist." I completed for her. "Because he's just a lowly plumber? That's not fair," she complained. "I never said that. I need them to take me seriously if I want to have a future in law. You know how these circles work." I couldn't help laughing. "Actually, I don't know how these circles work. I'm just a plumber, remember? But you know what I do know? The exact amount I've paid for your law school so far. Want me to break it down for you?" She began to say something, but I continued. "First year costs $43,000. Second year first semester costs $21,500. Plus all the other costs, your laptop, textbooks, and that special study program you simply had to have. According to my calculations, that's around $77,000 thus far. Everything was paid for by your embarrassing plumber brother. Why are you acting like this?" she moaned. "You know how important this is for my future. Craig's family has connections at all the top firms, and having a plumber brother would ruin that." I inquired, "Even though that plumber brother is the only reason you're in law school in the first place?" "You promised to help me," she replied. "You said you'd support my dreams," I said. "Yeah, I did, when you were proud to call me your brother. But if I'm too embarrassed to have Christmas dinner, then I guess my money should be too embarrassing to pay for your tuition. You guys." The screech that came out of her mouth sounded like a pterodactyl's tail being stepped on. "You can't do that," she shouted. "The payment is due in 2 weeks. What am I supposed to do?" "I don't know," I responded, feeling strangely peaceful. "Maybe ask Craig. I'm sure his fancy doctor salary could cover it. Or is my dirty plumber money the only kind you're willing to touch?" She began crying, full-on dramatic sobbing. "Please," she asked, "I'll tell Mom and Dad I was wrong. You can come to Christmas. Just please don't do this to me." "No," I replied. "I don't want to come to Christmas. I don't want to embarrass you in front of Craig and his family. In fact, I don't want anything to do with any of you anymore. Consider this my last payment to the family that's ashamed of me. I hung up while she was still crying and begging and immediately banned her phone number. I poured myself a drink and braced myself for the impending storm. After that, everything began. My mom came first. She called around 5 times in a row before I eventually answered. The moment I responded, she launched into guilt trips, which are her specialty. She was crying about how I was wrecking the family and Amanda's future due to a silly misunderstanding. Silly misunderstanding? I asked. She literally told you she was ashamed of what I do for a living. The same job that's been paying her tuition? She didn't mean it like that, Mom explained. You know how Amanda is. She just gets caught up in trying to impress people sometimes. She looks up to you. I almost choked on my drink. She basically barred me from Christmas because she was humiliated by me. How the hell is that looking up to me? Then Mom took a different approach. Consider what this will do to her relationship with Craig. His family might greatly benefit her career. Oh, so you want to talk about Craig? I interrupted her off. It's funny how important he and his family are. Yet your own son isn't even good enough to sit at the Christmas table. She started blubbering about how that wasn't what they meant and how I was taking everything too personally, which is a typical mom move, trying to make me feel like I'm overreacting when they're the ones being nasty. When my father called, he went straight for the angry approach, which was unsurprising, and he started ranting about how I was being selfish and vengeful, calling me a little one for endangering Amanda's education. Isn't that Father of the Year material? Let me get this straight, I told him. I'm a little monster for not wanting to spend thousands of dollars on someone who is ashamed of me? Make it make sense, Dad. We raised you to be better than this. He hissed. Family supports family. Really? Is that what you intended when you agreed to exclude me from Christmas? Was that a supportive family? He tried to explain himself by claiming that sometimes we had to make sacrifices for the better welfare of the family, which apparently included kissing Craig's ass in the hopes that he would boost Amanda's career. But what really struck me was that no one apologized for how they treated me during any of these calls. Instead, it was all about how I was bad for sticking up for myself, how I was being petty and vengeful, and how I was letting my pride get in the way of family. Then came the flying monkeys. My aunt called to tell me how disappointed she was in my behavior. My uncle texted saying I needed to man up and be the bigger person. And even my cousin Sarah, who told me about Amanda's lies, messaged me saying maybe I was taking things too far. But you know what? None of them offered to help pay Amanda's tuition themselves. The best part, Amanda actually went and told Craig what was going on, and I guess she thought he'd offer to help with the tuition instead. According to Sarah, who's still keeping me updated, Craig got really quiet and started asking questions like, why hadn't Amanda ever mentioned she had a brother? Why didn't she introduce them? Why did her brother pay for her law school in the first place? Craig couldn't understand why Amanda would keep her brother's existence hidden just because he was a plumber. It turned out that his uncle, the one who built their family home, started as a plumber before becoming a contractor, and Craig had actually worked summers with him in high school. When Amanda tried to explain her reasoning, she just dug herself deeper. She started talking about professional appearances and social circles, and Craig got more and more upset, saying he couldn't believe she'd hide and disrespect her own brother. Amanda had lost it completely. She called me from yet another burner phone. At this point, I was convinced she had more phones than a drug dealer. She was crying, shouting, blaming me for everything. That I had wrecked her life, that Craig had dumped her because of me, that her whole future was falling apart. I couldn't help but laugh. No, sis, Craig ended things after discovering your true self. I simply stopped helping you hide it. She threatened to ruin me by claiming I had sexually assaulted her in high school, that she would report my business for fraud, and that everyone would see what a terrible brother I was. I told her to go ahead. Let everyone know the truth, that the monster brother who paid for her education was the one she was too ashamed to acknowledge. Then she begged again, sobbing about how she couldn't afford law school without me, how she'd have to drop out, lose her friends, and how her life was over. I told her she should have thought about that before pretending I didn't exist. After Craig dumped her, Amanda completely broke down. According to Sarah, she started showing up at our parents' house at odd hours, crying and ranting that her life was ruined. She had told all her law school friends that Craig was going to help her with tuition. So when he left her, she was utterly stuck. The tuition deadline loomed closer, and she hadn't figured out what to do. Emergency loans were out because they take time to process and require a cosigner. Our parents' credit was a mess. No surprise there. Sarah texted me, 911. Amanda just posted on Facebook she's heading to your shop to make you face what you're doing to her. She looks unstable. I barely had time to warn my guys before Amanda stormed in like a tornado. Designer clothes, messy hair, mascara running. Full crazy ex-girlfriend mode. Except this was my sister. "How could you do this to me?" she screamed in front of customers and staff. "You're my brother. You're supposed to look after me." I tried to calm her down, asked her to lower her voice or go outside, but she was determined to cause a scene. "You're ruining my life," she yelled. "All because your feelings got hurt. You're so selfish." An elderly client who had been with us for years stood up and said, "Young lady, is this the brother who's been paying for your education?" Amanda was caught off guard. The lady added, "You just made it everyone's business by storming in here and shouting. You're biting the hand that feeds you." Amanda didn't know what to say and switched back to full theatrical sobbing, claiming I was punishing her because I was jealous of her success. I laughed and said, "Success? Amanda, the success of losing your boyfriend, maybe dropping out of law school, and embarrassing yourself in front of my staff." She retorted, "I'm not just playing with pipes all day like some idiot," then quickly stopped herself, realizing she was disrespecting plumbing in front of actual plumbers. Mike, my senior employee, stepped up seriously and said, "Ma'am, for the past 5 years your brother's pipe laying has provided for my family, paid for my kids' braces and my wife's car. It even paid for your law school. Maybe show some respect." Amanda looked around, saw the stunned faces, and finally stormed off, knocking over the sign, clipboard, and business cards in the process. The elderly lady patted my arm and said, "My late husband was a plumber. He put all 3 of our kids through college, and none of them ever embarrassed him for what he did. Even my mom told me, 'You're doing the right thing, honey.' Sometimes family has to learn respect the hard way." After calming my staff and explaining the situation, they were incredibly supportive. Mike even said his family's Thanksgiving drama was boring compared to ours. Amanda went full nuclear, calling every relative, telling them this sob story about her cruel brother trying to ruin her future. Aunt Karen lectured me about family obligations, even though she still owed me $5,000 from emergency dental work 3 years ago. Uncle Steve, Dad's brother, tried to lecture me on family investments but suddenly had to leave when I challenged him to lend Amanda the money he bragged about having. Nobody actually offered to help pay Amanda's tuition, just plenty of opinions about what I should do. The final update is that Amanda had to drop out of law school. Craig's parents saw through her lies and warned her about manipulating people. Our extended family stopped asking for my help, and business is booming. I've expanded, hired more workers, and even hang out with Craig and his uncle now. Turns out we get along great when family drama isn't involved. My parents tried to reconcile around Thanksgiving, but only because they needed help with their mortgage. I declined and suggested they ask Amanda. Honestly, I feel better now. No more pretending, no more being the family ATM, no more walking on eggshells. Just me, my business, and real friends who respect what I do. Thanks for listening, Reddit. Sometimes strangers online are the only ones who remind you you're not insane for standing up for yourself.